Okay. All right. Well, great. Etienne, thank you so much for coming to my newsletter, the Rio Grande Substack. I've been
Absolutely.
following you since your launch. You went viral on TikTok or on social media, your testimony. I will say that a lot of the ladies are very are fans of yours. I have some friends who are like, oh, I want to be in his district. So you're getting a lot of love, a
Come
lot
over,
of
yeah.
support. A lot of support. So for everybody watching, hello everyone and welcome. I'm
Hi,
excited
everybody.
to, yes, I'm excited to bring you an important conversation today. Etienne Rosas, who is running for U.S. Congress to represent Texas District 34. Etienne is challenging incumbent Vicente Gonzalez, and today we'll talk about his vision for South Texas, the issues that matter most to our communities, and why he believes now is a time for new leadership. So thank you so much for joining me, Etienne. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Etienne.
It's actually Etienne with the N E at the
Etienne,
end is silent.
Etienne,
Yeah.
Etienne, Etienne.
You could
Lovely.
also call me Rosas. A lot of people switch over to
Rosas,
Rosas. Yeah.
más fácil, más
Yeah.
fácil. Yeah, so for those of
Exactly.
you who do not know you yet, Etienne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to run for Congress? Let's get right in.
Okay, so my name is Etienne Rosas. I am a Mexican American born in Brownsville, Texas. I'm a Democratic Socialist, long time. I'm a musician. I play in a band called the Revies that is also Mexican American. We've played both sides of the border. Has a
Wow.
lot of like actual themes of the Mexican American experience and even like the indigenous, like
Hmm.
influence. I'm also a researcher and I have a PhD in public policy analysis. And most recently, I was an academic at Princeton and I was studying democratization and institutional corruption there. So much of, I think, what encompassed my study was democratic backsliding. So the study of how democracies shift over to become oligarchies, essentially these entities that no longer really represent people, but start to represent these autocratic bodies, such as corporations or other special interests, whether they're traditional or new. In our case, obviously, we know with the advent of social media and all, and the digitalization, then we have like these new oligarchs that have popped up that are the richest people that have ever existed. And then how that ties into the emergence of fascism. And so that I think goes into why I decided now was a critical time to do this. Partly it's because this process where we're at, like somebody like Trump and our decline into what we were talking about, like a fascist sort of resurgence. Is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg of a trajectory that we've been following probably since the 80s, right? Since like
Mm.
neoliberalism set in and a lot of, more democratic bodies sort of like unions.
Reaganomics, maybe?
Exactly, yes. So we had all these like huge concentrations of wealth, like rises in inequality that have been coming up since then. So for example, just to get a few numbers, in 1990, the bottom 50% of America owned about 3.5% of all wealth. Now that's gone down to 2.5%. But the real big decline has actually happened in the middle class, which is like, let's say 50% to 90%. At that point, the middle class owned around like 36% of all wealth, which is still not like a lot given like how much of the population it is. But now it's been sort of sucked dry and it's still declining and it's become now like less than 31%, right? So we're talking about 90% of America that owns only a third of the wealth in the country. And so much of that has not even gone to like has basically been directed to the 0.1%. So that's the top
Mhm,
tenth of the 1%. And
mhm.
that's what we're talking about here. It's like it's these individuals who have no accountability, who have basically these like empires within a nation that is supposed to be democratic and can use it and wield it to to flip the rules to their advantage. And at some point when that happens, the government is no longer actually regulating them, they're regulating the government. And that's what we're seeing happening throughout the nation. And we, the Rio Grande Valley and all these other places, Texas, like these pockets that we have of, you know, fascism or whatever you want to call it, we're basically just kind of feeding into that dynamic, and we're complicit whether we like it or not. And I think so many people actually feel it, but they don't really know what to do about it, because so much of this has hinged on us continuing this system, because, you know, we rely on our connections to power. We need to feed our families. A lot of people just don't have time to really even think about this. So then I think that dynamic has been weaponized against them by the political class, which wants to continue how it is, right? And much of it, you know, comes down to like, oh, well, you know, it's the Democrats or it's the Republicans, but it's not. It's actually like a system. And like Republicans, yes, they brought it about because they're you know, always been
power.
the business. I mean, the party of big business. But Democrats, sometime around, especially during Clinton, you know, years, they became participants in this game because they sort of thought, yeah, like the working class is not powerful enough to win us elections. The middle class, like, yeah, we can sort of like, you know, give some concessions here and there, but we got to start playing that same game. And that's where we are now. Like, basically, we have 90% of Americans whose interests are not represented, because at the end of the day, whether you vote for this candidate or another, policy still gets watered down way up there. And then, you know, the thing that you see, and I know this is also like a policy person, the thing that you see is just a completely bastardized, distorted version of the policies as they are thought out and as they are, you know, designed. Basically, they help inordinately those at the very top, and they keep the conditions at the bottom pretty stable. So, okay, that was a very long story. I got to do like my academic rant.
Right.
But in any case, like, I think what really prompted me to go in here is because, well, there was like a personal side, but also I think like a more like academic side to it, which is like, it is impossible. And we were talking about this before the interview. At this point in time, we are reaching a breaking point in this system where it's not really just about like weathering the storm. It's the fact that we actually need to redirect this and to actually like come up with an actual alternative to the way we do things, because this is not going to stop. Like, it's actually going to get worse before it gets better. But as long as we don't actually design some vision that people can believe in, that actually like solves their problems and speaks to their reality, then we're never really going to move beyond it. And I think like this is a critical juncture, because we flirted with it for 4 years, 2016 to 2020. And then 2020 to 2024 basically was like, let's, you know, correct a few things, and maybe like that'll get us through the storm. But it wasn't enough, right? It wasn't enough to shift the dynamic. And then we have this, we're back in the same place, but even worse, because like now somebody like Trump is going for broke. And that, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to interrupt you. What is the one word you would say, or you would use when you say it isn't enough? What is the it?
I mean, it isn't
enough. I'm trying to explain it to people who are not well versed on this, who are not understanding the issues, who are not academics, because they're the ones that we want to turn out to vote, right? And they are not understanding. They understand hunger. They understand they can't pay bills. They understand that they feel they're not being listened to, that their voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So what is that it factor that you are running on? What is that it? What is not working, or what didn't work? What is the it? Well, how would you?
The it that is not working is that we can't actually solve this with band-aids. We can't, like, the middle of the road thing, that's just a myth, right? It's sort of like telling a patient who is dying of cancer, who has been smoking 5 packs a day, like, the real solution here is you have to stop smoking altogether, right? And then somebody is saying like, no, but let's not go that far. Let's do 2.5 packs a day, like, let's do something like that. Like, that is exactly sort of the mentality that Democrats have adopted here. But part of it is because they're comfortable with the dynamic. They feel like, I mean, we had somebody like James Carville go around saying like, we just have to play dead because Trump is going to, you know, screw himself over. No, like actually we have to do things to change people's reality. And what that looks like is, you know, going at it from attacking power at the top. That is like, you know, issues like progressive taxation, attacking like the lobbying groups and all these like corporate donations in our political system, going after monopolies and the
Yeah.
concentrations of power, and
Mhm.
then from the bottom creating like a unified voice in favor of universal programs such as healthcare for all, childcare for all, protection of unions, and protection of all these other bodies that actually are able to have bargaining power against those who have basically all of the capital of a society. Improving all these democratic systems that actually get people's voices heard. In our case, for example, it could be something as simple as like, well, you can revamp like the Voting Rights Act and actually add to it by creating systems like ranked choice voting,
Mhm.
by having like town halls. For example, our congressman has only had one in the past year. By
Mhm.
involving people in that democratic process and actually listening to what they're saying and what they need. And in this case, I think like many of us have been used to just being so marginalized, so left out, that we go and show up every 4 years and then we realize like, oh, this didn't really change at all and it's actually just getting worse. You know, maybe I'll go for that other one. But no, that other one is doing the exact same thing because it's just another power structure. So this candidacy that I set forth was, okay, yes, I'm going to run, you know, in a Democratic primary, but I want to actually like bring it back to what it was
Mm.
pre-neoliberalism. So the FDR years where we were talking actually about solving these problems. Now, in that
Mhm.
case, that we were coming out of a Great Depression, right? So there
Mhm.
was plenty of arguments for like, this thing doesn't work and it crashed and it, you know, it's destroying the lives of millions of people. So now I think we're back at it. I don't want to just wait until we have another Great Depression and people are led by the way. And I don't want to wait until like, oh, actually immigrants were not the problem and trans people were not the problem because I'm still struggling, right, financially. No, I
Mhm.
want those solutions to be put out there and for people to actually discuss them and put their weight behind them and actually pressure their politicians to do something. So in this
Mhm.
case,
Yeah.
if nothing else comes from this, I want somebody like Vicente Gonzalez to answer for his votes, to answer for the inaction, to like say like, okay, why are you voting half the time with Republicans for things that you were supposedly, you know, in favor of when you talk to communities? Like, why are you praising ICE coming in here? Why are you
Mhm.
praising Bukele like in El Salvador? Why are you allowing APAC to dictate our foreign policy and like slaughter like, you know, thousands of children abroad, right? All these kinds of things, I think it doesn't work. Democracy just doesn't work if there's no scrutiny and if there's no accountability. And I think like because power structures are so rigidified here, there has never really been much of a challenge or pushback on what they do. And when they feel that comfort, they are, you know, they're so like they sit pretty. They just continue it because they know nobody's going to ask them about it.
That resonates a whole lot with me, because that's what my work has been as a community organizer and grassroots organizer. As a matter of fact, I just gave a speech at the John Lewis commemoration event in McAllen that we need more people to primary, or we need more people to run for office. Incumbents are running, unchallenged. There's
Yeah,
offices
yeah.
that don't even have an opposite. They just have the Democrat, or they just have the Republican, because it's like, oh,
That's just the
nobody.
way that, yeah, the system. And
Mhm.
and in my case, it's like I welcome like any challenge. Like I want more people to be
Right.
like, you can do it too. You have a vision, you think like that works better, then let's bring it, you know, and join me in doing it, right?
And that's why I
But
think the young voters would, your message would resonate a whole lot with young voters. Again, as a community organizer,
yeah,
I canvass a lot. I did a lot of work the last two, actually since 2018, since Beto O'Rourke. I used to live in Austin. I was there for 6 years. And so I started my activism work then.
Mhm.
But when I moved to the Valley, I live in McAllen now. When I moved here, I realized everything that you were saying is not happening here. Austin is a different beast in a good way.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like questioning, they know what they're supposed to do. They know how to be engaged civically. They question elected officials at all levels. They go and they gather in front of their offices and they demand answers.
Right.
Here, quiet. Nobody dares
Yeah.
say anything. So I don't know if it's a cultural thing. And in my rants, when I write, or when I was in the Mothers for Democracy Facebook group, I would rant. It's like, where's the Cesar Chavez movement? What, Dolores Huerta,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
where is that? Like, we're coming from there. Those are roots. They fought for us to vote and to get out and to not be told that we can't do things or
Right.
to be listened to. They fought for that. So, like, where's that spirit? Where's that
Yeah.
spirit? And
And
also,
sorry.
real
Go on.
quickly, because you're talking about a lot of things that I'm seeing on the ground. And this last thing, I was wondering and I was upset. As a 50-plus-year-old, I was upset that these young people were not voting. It's like, this is your future. You're voting for your future. You don't want to vote. And so
Mhm.
I asked people, I every time I see young voters, I ask them, did you vote? And they're like, no, but you're complaining. You're here protesting. Why are you protesting? And they're saying they speak to what you speak, that they're tired of corporate greed. Both parties, they don't align with either party,
Mhm.
and they want solutions. And
Right.
they are aware of the environment and corporate greed and not having enough wages or to be so much in debt if they go to college. So many can't afford to live outside of their parents' home, or if they work, it's very little, or X, Y, and Z. It's just so many things that when I hear you talk, I hear these young 20-year-olds talk,
Yeah.
and that
Well,
they didn't vote and are very opinionated.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're very politically engaged and they read
Mhm.
the news and they're very I went to a YDSA meeting yesterday. I met up with like a group, and it was like maybe like 10 people, but they have like a huge group in the art, and it's RGV based. And their engagement and their knowledge of issues is I mean it impressed me, like,
Yeah.
because I felt like I feel like my generation, I'm a millennial, and I don't think we had this level of like just background knowledge and engagement, right? But they, I think, are I mean, they see through the system, right? The way that what it's doing. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
it gives you an A and it gives you B, and it just says like, take whatever you want and sit it out 4 years, and then let's, come back and tell us what you believe. But no, I think like for them,
I'm gonna pause
democracy.
real quick. Hold on.
Sure.
I'm gonna pause. Okay.
And partly I think it is tied to what you're saying, that there is a cultural aspect to it, but it's also like a practice. Like democracy, like any other thing, is something that it's a process. It's not really a like you have it or you don't. Like, it's
Mhm.
something that gets built over years and years and years of like activism and participation and input, and
It
all these
evolves.
things. Yeah,
Make
it
it
evolves,
evolve.
exactly.
Mhm.
Like what we see in every country, when you see how democracies, even the United States, like much of the time, it starts just with like these like really rigid structures that people don't really get to participate in, or like, people get disenfranchised, or they feel like it just doesn't make a difference. But little by little, I think when they actually do start seeing like, oh, there's this other maybe group that can channel your interests and actually shares your vision, then that's when they start kind of like feeling like, oh yeah, like, so it creates like this effect, a compounding effect. And I think, if nothing else, this campaign, like my campaign, what I want is to like encourage that. Like, I want, we're going to have like town halls of our own, right? We're going to do like coffee hours and all these kinds of different things,
Mhm.
to get people to participate and to show them like what democracy in action looks like, so that it doesn't matter if we lose, if this campaign, but I think if people like start to get like the notion of what
Mhm.
democracy feels like,
Yeah.
it becomes addictive, right? Because it becomes
Yep.
like you're seizing your own power. And I
I
think
think,
that's really what this is about. People don't realize how much power they have.
and
It
I
really
think
just
that's
comes from them.
absolutely. And I think that's what keeps me back in the game as far as activism,
Mhm.
being an activist, that you know so much and you want to do more.
Yeah.
And that's where other people are. I'm gonna pause this again. Okay. So I'm understanding Gen Z a lot better now. 'Cause I was so resentful. I was so honestly, I was pissed off that they didn't show up, but I understand it now. I think we needed that again. I already have 3 adult children, and they voted only because I made them, not because they wanted to. And so I finally figured out what it is that they've been listening to or talking or understanding how they see the
Right.
world. They see it a lot different, more, a lot different than I do. So can we move on?
Yes.
Okay. I love all your conversation. Maybe we can talk after if you have time.
Sure.
So on campaign motivation, you decided to challenge an incumbent. I mean, that's a big move. What made you believe, maybe you already answered, what made you believe now is the right time? I guess you can repeat it. And
Well, I think a lot of Democrats are, and the feeling that they give off is that they're thinking this is business as usual. Like they're not, they think they can sort of like duck and maybe
Mhm.
just kind of go along with the game for a little bit, and then they'll be back, and then people suddenly will realize like, oh, this is so bad that, maybe Democrats aren't, too
And
bad.
that's what keeping people from voting too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is the one issue that personally keeps you up at night?
The one issue that keeps me up at night, I mean, I think in general, our descent into fascism and it manifesting in things like ICE being like I think it's now like the eighth funded
Mm-hmm.
military force in the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
And it being deployed against people, like my own. Yeah. I understand, and I think everybody should understand that we are only going to get weaker as we go along. So if there is ever a time that you needed to actually seize your power and use it as, firmly and as solidary as possible with other people like you, it's now. It's not later.
Powerful message. That's a powerful message. On issues, healthcare. How do you see healthcare impacting families in the Valley right now?
Well, I mean, we're like one of the most uninsured places in, districts in the country. Childcare is also just like a huge concern of everybody. Like here in this district, I think like there's so much need for it, and it's just been neglected. But again, it's also part of that big systemic issue. I think any Democrat right now that is not campaigning on healthcare for all is engaging in political malpractice. Like
Really?
we are the richest country in the world, and of all the developed countries in the world, the only one that does not have universal health care. It's not a matter of lack of resources or lack of ideas of how to do it. It's just a matter of corruption.
Mm.
And we need to get through that, because the benefit, like it would actually be, universal health care has been shown time and time again to yield better results and to actually be cheaper. Because right now, all
Mm-hmm.
we're doing is we're paying intermediaries to
Mm-hmm.
withhold our health care from us,
Mm-hmm.
rather than actually using it towards better healthcare results, towards prevention strategies, and in general, just to bettering the lives of everybody around us.
On a state level, I know you're running for federal office,
Mm.
but on a state level, the state has a lot to do with it too. We
Right.
don't
Yeah.
have the Medicaid expansion. What are your thoughts on that? Um,
Well, right now,
because people don't know the difference. A lot of time they say, "Oh, it's the president or the administration," but it also has a lot to do with how the state runs it.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a healthcare like expert, but I do know that in Texas, like so much of what ails like the way that we do it here is that it's been heavily concentrated in the hands of private actors, right? So
Mm.
HMOs and all these other groups that monopolize those. And right now, for example, like with Trump's big beautiful bill, that's just going to go into overdrive, right?
Mm.
So over time, like I think that this notion that we could just privatize it more in order to like yield or spread the benefits out in that way through like a single actor it's only been leading to less and less people being insured. I think right now the number stands at around like 18 million that will be uninsured after this bill passes.
Mhm,
Um, and nothing that the state does is going to make up for that. Like
mhm,
Texas has only been moving in the direction of more privatization of these structures,
mhm.
and it's going to price people out. It's going to leave them uninsured. So it's essentially they're saying like, the system sucks. Why don't we make it like suck a little bit more and head in the
Make it worse.
opposite direction, right?
Opposite
Um,
direction.
yeah,
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that, Medicaid is federal monies.
yeah,
And when you don't fund people or when you don't fund it, the state is gonna do less,
yeah.
right?
It's just going to like leave
And
it, up to private actors to see like
right.
whatever they come up with, right?
Okay. On education, do you support fully funding public schools and what's your stance on vouchers?
Yeah, obviously, I think like, educators, public schools severely underfunded, the educators severely underpaid. This is like a critical sector. Like, I think like actually we shouldn't be tying it to like zip codes or anything like that. I think there should be state fund and that should be distributed equally among public schools. And that actually like voucher systems and all that stuff, again, it's just another scheme for more privatization and for more funneling money over to those that actually like away from sectors that need it the most. Like
Mhm.
your zip code should not determine the
Right,
quality of your
right,
education, and it should not, you know, keep like educators from going there because they know they're not going to be paid or they're not going to have supplies. Like, no,
right.
education is like actually a collective good. The more educated kids we have of all sectors, of all different zip codes, the better we all are as a state.
As with health, the
As with health,
healthier
right?
society, right? More productive.
Right. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like oh well, I'm okay, but this other person is uneducated, is like struggling with their own health, like, well, that's their problem. Like, no, like the people who provide, like, human capital is really the only capital. Like,
Right.
if you feed it and if you keep it healthy and you strengthen it and you give
Mhm.
children the ability to grow healthy and happy and educated, it's going to yield marvelous things. It's the only thing that
Right.
ever has.
I mean, we are a country, we're in a social contract. What does the
Right.
social contract mean if we're not helping each other out?
Exactly.
And
Yeah. I
where
mean,
and where are our taxes going to? You know,
well, they're going to, I think we know where they're going. There's, or where they're staying, really. They're
or where they're
staying.
staying,
Yeah.
where they're staying. So on immigration, what would be a humane border policy, or what would a humane border policy look like under your leadership? Or maybe do you think it's well, I think you mentioned you spoke on ICE a little bit. Is it
Mhm.
humane? And what would a humane border policy look like under
Well,
your
first off, like I would abolish ICE altogether. I think like ICE is just now like a paramilitary body that Trump has enabled in order to do his bidding. It's not follow legality. It's targeting people based on the color of their skin. That is just that's not what a democratic country is all about. So it has no
Mhm,
place here. Um, so I would abolish ICE altogether. I would actually even revamp Border Patrol, because I think like Border Patrol has also been contaminated by this same kind of idea of
mhm,
xenophobia, of viewing the outside as like, like this like invading force or something like that. So I think like for a more comprehensive like immigration strategy, first off, like we need to like completely overhaul it. Like it, instead of like actually granting less asylum, we need to expand the asylum
mhm,
system. We also need to provide sensible avenues towards citizenship. If people come into this country and they work and they're good citizens and they've been building their community, that's their community. That's where they've been paying taxes to it. They've helped
mhm,
build it. That's what communities are made of, people. Like citizenship originally, when it came up, was a way to tackle monarchy and monarchic
mhm,
wealth and elite status, and now it's
mhm,
being weaponized against people in the basis of like their color. And like
mhm.
the separation of society has created all these imbalances that are not going to lead to anything good. So I would say, instead of like militarizing the border, we should make it act easier for people to come back and forth, to make it,
Right,
because
right.
we've created a system right now that a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of a lot of militarization is just kind of creeping up. Like we make it such that it, even if you're worried about cartels, and my area of
I was
specialization,
gonna ask you. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
yeah, so I specialize in organized crime and terrorism studies, right?
Mhm.
And when you have this kind of draconian border policy, you create incentives for like smuggling, and like the price actually goes up. So that goes
Mm.
back to their coffers. We are, the unintended consequence of this is that you're beefing up a security apparatus that is not actually helping like the people in either side. It's just kind
Mhm.
of like saying like no. And it's not respecting the inter. We're a border community. We are tied. Our economies are tied to those
Right.
of Matamoros, of Reynosa.
Fluid. It's
Right.
fluid.
Right. We are basically the same people. Like we share all these cultural bonds, right? And when you do that, you're kind of going against like that dynamic that is happening. And you're disabling people even from, for example, if you wanted people to be able to go out freely and come back and forth and work freely, then that's exactly what you're disallowing. But you're also creating incentives for illegality, and you're raising the price for
Mhm.
smuggling, incentivizing more smuggling operations from taking place, and for people to be exploited in the process. So I think a sensible border policy would look less like militarization and more like opening structures of collaboration
Mhm.
for, like, yes, maybe like a system of controlled traffic or something like
Mhm.
that, but nothing that actually cuts the ties between those communities. Something
Right.
that is like, in the past in Europe, when they were at war with each other constantly, they were obsessing over their borders too. And look at them now, right?
Right.
Those are economies that
Fluid.
are tied together. And yes, that border works because it doesn't have to be this sort of rigid construct that we're just like, worshiping.
So the United States does have, I guess, a lot of people, or I'm thinking of terrorism. How the counter argument would be, and what the rhetoric is also, is like you have all this terrorism coming in, you have all these cartels coming in, so that that's how they justify the border
Mhm.
wall and militarization and becoming more strict. How would you deal with that? Like, how would you, because what a lot of these officers, law enforcement, that's what they see. They're protecting the country. They're protecting neighborhoods, cities, the state. They're protecting them from people, with nefarious reasons coming in, right? Or criminals and whatnot. So when you say, if we are attacking Border Patrol or the police, or even ICE, they're saying we're going after criminals.
Okay. Well, first off, if you really wanted to go after terrorism, then you would set your sights on white nationalism, because white nationalists are by far the biggest perpetrators of domestic terrorism of any other group. Like all other groups pale in comparison. But what are we doing with white nationalism? No, we're empowering them and bringing them into, bodies like ICE. And we know this for a fact. Like I studied white nationalism, and many of them are in these groups that are supporting Trump and that are tied to him. And now they're part of ICE and they're allowed to just go in and
Mhm.
terrorizing communities. So I don't think like that argument really holds up in the way that they think it does. Usually when people think of terrorists, it has to be somebody brown skinned from the Middle East or from other, like, yes, cartels, all this. A lot of that is just fear mongering, because at the end of the day, both terrorism and organized crime, they're not really solved by militarization or by force. They're solved with intelligence. There's a place for force, and it has to be much more surgical and almost like an avenue of last resort when
Mhm.
you're able to actually enact the information systems in communities that you need. So a lot of it is like good police work, community safety partnerships, for example. A lot of it is also just prevention strategies. So there's like so much of actually what is sustainable. Like there are so many models that work. The drug war is a prime example of something that does not work. And
Mhm.
if it were a matter of force, then we would have solved it already. We've been at it
Mhm.
for 40 years, and like you get one cartel and then another one springs up, a lot of the times more violent. The only
Mhm.
thing that really gets something out of this is, the military bodies, the selling of weapons, and cartels themselves, which are also growing because, you like make a scenario where a volatile situation is bringing more recruits into their ranks, right?
Mhm.
If you break up a community, and then right now, for example, what's happening in Sinaloa, like you see, I think like assassinations went up like 230% or something like that. And that's a direct consequence of like basically the US like plucking a drug lord and then breaking up like all that issue there, coming over here, bringing him over as like a trophy, and then
Mm.
saying like, oh, look at the situation in Sinaloa, it's like going out of control. It's like, yes, well, that's kind of what you've been doing for the longest time, and it doesn't work. Like what
Mhm.
you've done by like taking out this one is like empower this other one to move in, who has like more resources and sometimes is more violent, and now you have that new problem, and now it's a new villain, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, are we really interested in solving this sustainably, or are we going after the root issues of how organized crime work? And nothing of this is new. Like they know this. Like this study has been going on for like over 20 years. And we know that the military part of it, first off, is just too blunt of an instrument to do any good. But the other part is that they're not really interested a lot in on top of it, it's like super costly. It's much more
Mhm.
costly to do things by force than it is by investing in communities and resilience, and better prison systems as well. Like all of these pipelines that you could close for people going down those avenues, you could do them through a lot of prevention work and a lot of social investment. Same goes for
Mhm.
immigration, for example. A
Mhm.
lot of that money that comes that is going to like all this militarization and like stopping this flow or whatever, like those countries actually were, their social fabric was destroyed by militarization during the Cold War. You go back and you know that actually development work has a much more direct impact on
Mhm.
and mitigating immigration or waves of immigration than actually just like sending them back and like creating this body that just kind
Right.
of projects. So that's really kind of what this boils down to. It's like, it's not doing more, using more force, but doing it smarter and
So what
using
I'm
intelligence.
I hear you. I'm understanding what you're saying, but the rhetoric coming from the other side is you want to defund police or you hate police, you're against policing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what the other side comes and then that's when they hear, especially when they hear a Democrat, talk
Mm-hmm.
about trying to bring order to the borders. Like, well, you just want to remove everything. But again, it
Mm-hmm.
comes from the other side. And so, but
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that is just a misunderstanding in how some of these policies are meant to work, because the thing that costs police more is its militarization and the problems it creates afterwards when it uses these blunt force instruments. The biggest issue between like police and their communities is a lack of trust. And
Mhm.
until you solve that, then policing only has very limited effectiveness. I'm not really talking about defunding the police. I'm really just talking about doing things smarter, like doing things, implementing policies in ways that don't create damage and actually do things to fix it, right? Like I think like, yes, police have a place. There
Mhm.
is a place
It's
for
needed. It's
law,
needed.
it's needed, and there's a place for law enforcement, but law enforcement actually needs to be completely reframed as like not an enforcer, but actually like a peacekeeper and
Mhm.
a problem solver. And that
Mhm.
includes not just the use of force, that includes spreading out the service and like making partnerships with, for example, like faith-based organizations, models that have worked elsewhere, mental health
Mhm.
professionals, social workers. So many of these things just, what we do is just reactive. But
Do
like,
you, do you think they're being asked a lot? Are we asking a lot of our police officers besides?
absolutely, yes. They're not equipped for any of that. Like their training is like just so backward. It hasn't really updated. It's they're actually using a lot of these paradigms that are super old, that have not
Mhm.
changed at all. And I
Mhm.
think like many of them probably feel overwhelmed as well.
And
Like,
I feel that as a teacher, like that's a policeman and as a teacher, I feel the same way.
yeah.
People are asking a lot of teachers.
Yeah,
And then
they're sending you out there into a hostile environment, and they're giving you like, all these tactics which are just basically not, yeah, it's just escalation. Of
Mhm.
course, you're going to feel like it's like a jungle out there. And of course, you're going to feel unsafe. And of
Mhm.
course, you're going to be reactive to like any kind of thing. Instead of trying to solve problems, you're just defending yourself. And that's
Mhm.
not really the role of police. And we know that there are better models. Like we have,
Mhm.
you know, the model of like how police, for example, in Korea or in Japan or in Norway or in, you know, all in a lot of like European social democracies, like they have a much better notion of how police become integrated into the community and develop trust rather
Mhm.
than be seen as like another gang, you know, that people
Mhm.
mistrust, that don't want to share information with, and that they know is like, I don't even want contact with them because they could ruin my life.
Right, right, right. Okay, moving on. Texas Democrats have lost ground here in the Valley. What's your plan to win back voters who feel disconnected from the party? Well, I think the disconnect part, you have it, but what is your plan? How are you going to entice people, I guess, to vote, one,
Mhm.
because you are different. You have Socialist Democrat on your label.
Mhm.
Um, how are you, so you think with that label, you think you're in your where you stand on issues, that alone is going to attract voters? I know you also talked about having coffees, or I guess my question is, your campaign is going to be different. How are you going
Yes.
to entice them? Yeah.
Well, in large part, I think the big thing is listening and
Mhm.
actually getting people to share what they need and what they're expecting to participate essentially in the political process. So I think that's one key difference, and it's one that um, there's a reason why the Valley and like all of Texas went for Bernie in the Democratic primary in 2016 and 2020,
Right,
um,
twice.
and then also went for Trump. This
Yeah.
isn't this isn't like a coincidence. It basically says that I want somebody who is speaking to me in a sense, but that has like some kind of an energy that is different from everything that I felt before.
Okay,
Where
so you hold on. So you're saying the same people, or about the same people that voted for Bernie twice during the primaries, voted for Trump?
I don't know that it traces exactly to the same people, but I
But
know
what
that
got
the
people to
feeling is
vote?
very similar. It's an offering of vision
Mm,
for a different paradigm. And I think like Trump, his politics of exclusion, his like energy that is, you know, obviously it in my opinion, obviously it's just fake, you know, it's just phony. He's
mhm,
giving you a
mhm.
fake populist discourse, and that's exactly what fascism does.
Right.
It's appealing to the politics of nationalism, of machismo, of
Mhm.
exclusion, essentially, of
Yeah,
identity. But it
misogyny.
is and it kind of like channels that emotion and says like, let's build this project and like, you know, go after like the establishment that has kept you in this way. Well, precisely those kinds of things, that's what fascists weaponize in order to undercut the real populism, the real thing that people are after. And what I am offering, or what I think we should all be collectively moving towards, is that reality, like not the
Mhm,
fake one, but the actual one that includes all of us, that points the finger at the culprits, which are people like Trump, you know, people like, you know, Elon Musk, and
mhm,
people like, you know, even Jamie Dimon and all these other, you know, oligarchs at the very top that keep saying like, no, let's just continue as is. Like this one is like, no,
mhm.
there is a better way to do this. There is another vision,
I
and
think
we
you're
can
right.
enact it.
I'm seeing what you're saying. So both Bernie Sanders says there's a different way to do things, is this way. And then Trump came in and said, oh no, there's a different way, is this way.
Exactly.
But Bernie and Trump were not on the ticket
Yeah. They were
together.
they
So
but it's an energy, right? And it's an
mhm,
energy that is basically saying like, I don't like the way what I've been served this whole
mhm,
time. I don't
mhm.
like this feeling that I just haven't, I don't belong to anything. And I
Right.
think like so I have an article about this as well, like that I wrote about, that it's like never in my life, in all my time like being in the valley, like never in my life had I seen, you know, like trucks like with like flags and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and people be like if it was like a football team, right?
Right,
There's
right.
a
Yeah.
certain ideology and a feeling of belongingness that is contagious about it, and I
Right.
think that's where a lot of the Gen Z support at the time like was coming from. Like it's a project that is energizing, and it's energizing for all the wrong reasons, and it points the
Mhm,
finger at all the wrong people,
mhm,
but it doesn't mean that it's not coming from a place of like, I want to be a part of something, you know,
mhm.
that is
For
active,
belonging. Yeah.
right, and that does things like in a way that is not just like passive and just plays the same game. And in this point in time, I think like we are at a critical juncture and at a critical opportunity, because it's very clear that Trump is not going to offer any of what he's promised. Like he's the charade is sort of like coming down, right? And
Right.
Epstein is the clearest example, right? He's
Epstein.
obviously just a phony. So at this point in time, I think like what we must do is offer the real deal, offer the accountability, offer the participation in democracy, offer a better avenue towards a better life that includes everybody, not just, all the rich white dudes up there, but like
Minority at
everybody
the
of every,
top.
right. Collective benefits that
Right.
collectively make us stronger as a nation.
Do you think Democrats have misunderstood South Texas voters?
I don't know that they've misunderstood them. I think they just haven't really cared very much.
Okay.
I think they've taken them for granted. Like they've sort of seen like, well, what are these people going to do? Vote Republican? Nah, they're
That's
probably
coming
not.
out a lot. Yeah, in my interviews, it's coming out a lot. I felt it. A lot of us activists, we felt it. It's like, we're here. You're
Yeah.
not, where are you?
I mean, I one thing that I remember like just got emblazoned into my head was like Biden. I'm not sure where he was, but when he was campaigning, there was a Latino man with with a heavy accent and everything, and he was like saying like, you and Obama like deported so many of us, and like you haven't really listened to Latinos. Just pointing out like facts, right? Saying
Yes.
like this is the way we feel.
And that's
And
what I hear from Gen Z.
yeah,
They-
and Biden's response was like, okay, then go vote for Trump, right? That
Oh,
is sort of
wow.
like the mentality of how like Democrats have regarded the valley. And it's basically saying like you have no choice. This is the way it is, and this is the best you're gonna get. And what I want to do, and what this is doing, is like, no, no, no. Like you have to come here. I want to come here and actually talk to people and show them that no, that's you don't have to settle. Like you can actually be part of something, and you can actually seize your power, and they have to answer for it.
Right. Well, that's I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Do you go ahead and give us information
Spiel.
as to how to find you, or how can people find you? How do they get into your campaign to volunteer?
Awesome. Okay. So you can go to Etienne for Congress, which is ETIENNE, and then for Congress.com. I think Rosas for Congress also leads there, so if that's easier. But in any case, there's all the information there for you to sign up, volunteer. We need plenty of volunteers. If this like appeals to you, we want everybody's input and everybody's participation as much as possible. We have a bunch of events also like that we're working on to set up. Like I'm a musician, so plenty of music, plenty of art, and all that good stuff. And also, I think what I would like to extend is an invitation to donate, which I hate asking people for money, but at the end of the day, that is really the biggest hurdle that we have here, because like all like people like Vicente, like they have hundreds of thousands that they get together from all like these special interest groups. So it's very hard to compete. So we're not gonna like match that. But I think like the closer we get, the more we can actually do, and the more we can get out there, spread the word. So if you can donate, that would be great, even if it's $5 to $10. I'm not taking any super PAC money or any kind of special interest money. So
Are you self-funding, or do you have consultants in DC?
no consultants in DC. This is all self-funded. My only
Wow.
consultants are my mom and my dog, and like, people that I know, and that, those are just like the people that I
Wow.
listen to. So it's all like small donations,
Uh-huh.
friends, and community people that are interested in making a difference.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time,
Sure,
and good
thank
luck
you.
to you.
Thanks a lot, and shout out to all your audience.
Yes.